Good morning. This is David McLeod, Georgia Wildlife Services. I'm going to give you a panoramic, show you what I'm dealing with. This is a beaver job I got a call on. It's kind of a puzzler, kind of a head scratcher, but I believe I've got the problem solved, or at least well in hand. So far I've captured one beaver, but this is kind of a head scratcher. This is actually a subdivision that I cleaned the beaver out of this one some 15 or more years ago, before any of these houses were built. They had just cut the roads in. The subdivision pond is directly ahead. We're looking right at, and you go across that T right there, right out there. So we're at the subdivision pond. They had a pier out there, and that's where I caught the beaver some 15 or so years ago, one colony. They've had beaver since. I mean, this is Georgia. There's gonna be beaver. I can't keep them out short of some kind of massive fencing project. And even here, I'll show you in a minute why fencing doesn't always work. But this one's kind of a head scratcher because the complaints were coming from this neighbor up here. And I'll show you what was happening, not the pond. But anyway, the reports were that the beaver had been seen swimming in this retention pond, which was a puzzler. That's not a beaver pond. That's not good beaver habitat. There's no trees. They eat the cambium layer of trees. But why was he here? So I got to studying on this and got to looking. All right, we're gonna go for a little long walk through the woods here. I'll show you some stuff. Okay. Now this subdivision did indeed have chewed stumps over in here where beaver had clipped sweet gum. They love sweet gum and some maple. But anyway, we come out here, and there's some beaver chewed logs where he'd chewed trees down there. The resident just drug them out here and set them in the edge of woods. But yeah, you can see that's beaver. So yeah, I confirmed beaver. And we see stuff like this, a little crawl under. That's definitely beaver sized. They got a big butt, big wide. Okay, so that confirms they were indeed in there. And if you look across over there, get this up here where focusing you can see a trail on the other side coming up out of the water. Now I just came from that other side. They're not crossing under that fence, so maybe he's up there feeding on grasses and forbs. They'll do that, particularly in the summertime. But look here, we got another crawl under, and you can see the solid trail down through the woods. So yeah, beaver's coming up this drainage. As you can see, this is a low drain going down. We're going to walk back through here. I'll show you kind of what we're dealing with and what made it a little odd, some of the things that I deal with. All right, and this is the overflow. Should that pond fill up high enough, overtop that and overtop that, and allow water to get into the drain here. Safety features built in. To be a beaver trapper, you kind of need to understand some basic engineering, hydrology, waterways, how water flows, but whatever. I'm gonna come down this drainage here. All right, this is kind of puzzling. Why a beaver would come up here all the way from the pond. All right, particularly when you don't have a beaver swamp here. You know, I kind of figured, hey, I'm gonna find he's dammed up this little drain. He hasn't. I mean, it's got water, but it's not dammed up. So let's continue down this drain. Of course, one thing I always do, I look for sign, look for evidence. I see I can't tell if that's dog or coyote. I believe that's dog, a little round, too round to be a coyote. I see raccoon tracks, plenty of raccoon tracks. Yeah, that's dog. That's dog. Someone's dog's been down here. Okay. Raccoon. Raccoons love these muddy places. Looking for crawdads, tadpoles, things like that. All right. You see, it's kind of a washout, kind of a low place. If you understand a little history of an area and a little bit of geology, you understand that typically you don't see this depth of cut on a natural branch, or what I'd call a wet weather branch. This thing flows mainly during wet weather. And then you get down here. It's fixing to get rough in here. I'll show you. It drops off into a show enough what we call in South Alabama a wash. Because it's done washed out. If you know the history of Fayette County that we're in now, you know, this was mostly farmland. And this undoubtedly is a result of way back when they first logged this and converted it in farmland. A lot of it washed away, creating these deep gullies, as some would call them. But anyway, matter of fact, what is that? Down in Lumpkin, Georgia, the Providence Canyon. Classic example on the extreme end of washed out farmland. But yeah, and this is just some of the stuff I have to deal with. Beaver trapping. Alright. And you can see here, still pretty steep. And you can see the chew marks at the base of that gum right there, where beaver have been up here. So they're traveling up the bottom here. Let's keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there, that's all beaver. Stripping. It's called sweet gum for a reason. The sap is actually sweet. So they definitely like the taste of that. Kind of a deep wash in there. And we can start to see some water. We're holding some water there. Okay. I've alerted the backyard dog. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, let's slide through here. Yeah, if you're going to be a beaver trapper of any type, you ain't got to be afraid to get in the woods. Get a few scratches from briars and such. As you see, we're starting to see water. That's because this is where that beaver has made his home. Right here, here's the first dam. The second dam is actually down by the culvert. They've got the culvert blocked. But why is he here and not over there? Because that culvert goes straight through and this drain heads into the top end of the pond. Now, the HOA president happens to live on the lower end of the pond down by the dam, and he claims he knows where they are down there. So, and I haven't investigated the pond that heavily yet, so I'm taking him at his word that he knows where the den is on that. So there's probably a colony living in that pond. I started on this because the damage was up that way. So this is where I kind of started this in between here. Were they traveling from the pond up, or they're traveling from here up. I've got snares on the other side of that culvert, and I've got snares here. Matter of fact, you can't see it unless you get really close down there. You can see there's a bank den right down there. Oh, if you follow that log that's vertical, laying on the ground, come down, right there at the bottom to the left of it is a den entrance. Okay. Of the dams, there's 2 dams across the road between the culvert and the lake. The most recent and fresh activity was seen on this side. As a matter of fact, right there in the middle of that dam was the crossover where he crossed over and crossed between those 2 trees. And I have fresh tracks there. And I had a den here. So, here's my theory on this, and kind of confirmed by the one beaver I did catch a week ago today. It would have been Friday. Yep, a week ago. No, today's Monday. Yeah, a week ago, Friday. Anyway, 10 days so. I caught a beaver right there at that culvert in a snare. Single beaver. All right. I've laid out of here for a week. On that Friday, I knocked all the snares down so they weren't going to catch. So I didn't have to come out and check for the weekend, and then I got sidetracked for a week. So they've laid empty, non-functioning for almost 10 days now. Well, there is no new activity on that breach at the culvert. I knocked a gap in that dam because beavers hate a leaking dam. They want to plug it up. They want to fix it. Okay, so that was my lure to get them to that point where I had a snare waiting on them. And I caught them in that snare. Now, I used a little trick. Trappers know I'm not going to share it because it's one of my tricks. But I did not put the snare right in the gap. Don't do that. Don't put the trap right in the gap. Don't do that. They'll plug it up with mud. No, set it off to the side. Anyway, got them funneled into that, and I caught them there. All right, I had also made a breach right there in the middle of that dam. Now, not a big breach. You don't want to drain the thing. You just want to create a noisy leak. You want gurgling water going through there, a noisy leak. Beaver are drawn to the noise. They can't stand a noisy leak, so they want to plug it. And that had water flowing right out his trail where he come up between them 2 trees. Well, the water is still flowing 10 days later. No attempt at plugging. There were fresh tracks in the mud 10 days ago. There are no fresh tracks now. So that leads me to believe, and I'm not done with this job because I'm going to stay here until I'm absolutely sure there are no more beaver. That means I'm going to have to move over here to the pond now and focus on whatever may be in that pond. But this leads me to believe why this individual beaver, lone beaver, was here by his lonesome. Because typically beaver are a colony animal. They live as a mated pair with this year's offspring, and if they've been there 2 years, last year's offspring. They rarely live solo, except this one was solo with no new activity. So either this one was a wanderer from a colony down below who just happened to wander up here, or he was living here. If he was living here, this is my working theory on it. And someone may come on and correct me, tell me I'm all wrong, it don't happen, but I've had too many old timers tell me this, and I've had caught too many in my time to believe otherwise. My firm belief is there is something called a hermit beaver. You may call it something else, but I've always called them hermit. This is a beaver that has, for whatever reason, decided to live solo. And why? Could be lost its mate. I mean, maybe an old beaver lost its mate, has not remated, got run off by a younger pair that moved in, kicked him out of his colony, kicked him out of his area. It may be a beaver that has experienced trapping, has experienced pressure. But basically, it is a beaver that, for whatever reason, is hid out. And they can be some of the hardest to catch because they're solo. They're on heightened alert. They don't have extra sets of eyes and ears looking out for them. They're constantly on guard. And I believe this is the case because the beaver I caught here, it wasn't an old beaver, but it had definitely been in a scrap or two because its tail was just as chewed up as can be. Beaver will attack each other when they're fighting over territory, and they will bite and scar each other up, and this one was covered up with scars. So that's my theory. I believe I've got my hermit out of here. I believe I've got the problem solved. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move downstream, focus on the pond, breach these a little better, really get some flow going, and see if they get plugged. If there's no activity in the next week while I'm working down there, then I will assume that I've gotten the beaver that was causing the problem up there. Okay, just thought I'd do a video. It's a long one. Kind of describe what I do, kind of the problem solving, the head scratching I run into, the difficult terrain that I get to enjoy, and I do enjoy it. You know, I love to complain and moan and groan, but I'm old, so I'm going to moan and groan, but I love what I do. If you have a problem with beaver, if you have a head scratcher like this, please give me a call. Even if you don't hire me, I like talking what I do. I can give you pointers if you want to try it, but if you just want the problem solved, give me a call. David McLeod, Georgia Wildlife Services, 678-967-5069. Thank you.